Okay, I am back with you. I believe we have Miss Broadway on the line. Are you our second ASL interpreter?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Great. Okay, so we are ready to begin. We'll go ahead and begin tonight's meeting, just like every other meeting, with a roll call. I will go ahead and note in advance that, we do this as a matter of procedure, but we do know that we have several commissioners absent this evening. 5D01 is Commissioner Sabrina Rhodes, and she did notify me that she would be absent this evening. There were some personal circumstances that prevented her from attending tonight. 5D02.
Present.
5D03 is Commissioner Elmore, and she will not be in attendance tonight. 5D04 is Commissioner Bernice Blacknell, and she will not be in attendance at tonight's meeting. 5D05 is myself, Commissioner Sadell Moore, and 5D06 as Commissioner Zachary Hoffman, and he will not be in attendance at tonight's meeting due to a work obligation. 5D07.
Present.
Okay. We do not have a quorum for tonight's meeting. So that, just for everyone's understanding, following along at home, we did have a lot of last minute cancellations. And so we do not have a quorum for tonight's meeting. We will still hear presentations, but none of the votes that we have scheduled for this evening will be actionable. So we'll have to table those for a future meeting unless one of the commissioners who had an emergency is able to join late ahead of the voting actions. Okay. All right. Next up, I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda as amended per my previous statement regarding the voting actions.
Second that.
Okay. And then all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then we do have a copy. We do not have a copy of the meeting minutes for last month's meeting, so we'll have to postpone the approval of the previous meeting minutes. Commissioner Cobb, I do note that you are here tonight, so if you would like to walk us through last month's finances.
I was able to upload them right before the meeting started, so I have them ready if you'd like to hear.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. We had an opening balance of $107,297, $107,297.39. Our only expenditure was a $25 check for the ANC security fund, which left us with a closing balance of $107,000 to $107,272.39.
Okay, thank you for that. And then so next up on our agenda, we'll have the public safety report. And I know the captain couldn't join us this evening, but I did see MPD on the screen just a few minutes ago. We can't hear you if you're, I don't know if your audio is connected.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I'm sorry about that. My name is Lieutenant Zenobia Hakir. I'm in place of Captain Merrill tonight because he's the midnight field commander and therefore he could not make it. Just wanted to let you guys know that in PSAs 506 and 507, which is what we call Sector 3, crime overall has been down. So in the last 30 days, crime is down in all categories than it was last year, the same 30-day time period. And the same thing, the last 30 days versus the previous month, crime is down overall. So there's a couple of different changes that the commander and the chief, who's the chief of PSN, have made in the 5th district. Recently, the commander Fitzgerald, we have like a group of officers here who actively do a lot of traffic enforcement. And in doing that traffic enforcement, they've been able to take dozens of guns off of the street, specifically in PSAs 506 and 507, which is the whole Benning Road corridor, Trinidad, Ivy City. And I would say they're probably getting about 4 or 5 guns off the street per week just from traffic stops. So I believe that that has been very helpful in reducing a lot of the, the violent crime. In addition to that, Chief Emmerman allotted the 5th District 12 overtime slots for 2 shifts during day work and the evening tours of duty. So we've deployed those officers to different hotspot areas where crime has been, steady in an attempt to try and be present and reduce crime in those areas. So if anybody has any specific questions about specific crimes, I can try to give you whatever information that you might need. I will say that stolen autos are a problem. That's citywide. And most of the stolen autos are from people, especially like delivery drivers, like Uber Eats, that type of thing, pulling up, jumping out of their cars, and then people seeing them do that and getting in their cars and driving off. That's the majority of our stolen autos. And that's one of the biggest problems. So we're working hard trying to, spread the information so that people will stop doing that. But in the meantime, that's one of our biggest issues. So if anybody has any questions? Okay, no?
Sure. So thank you for that update. First, we'll have questions from the commissioners, if any of the commissioners have questions. If not, then we'll move to questions from the public. Please, if you have a question in the public and you're on Zoom, the app, if you'll type in your question in the Q&A box. If you're joining Zoom via phone, you dialed in the 301 number, you can use the *9 in order to raise your hand so that we can hear your questions or concerns. Commissioners, any questions from you?
I had a quick question. In terms of the rate that we're picking up some of these guns off the streets was amazingly well. Do we know where they're coming from exactly? Do we have any way to kind of confirm whether they're coming from the easy location of picking up one in Virginia or any of that?
Most of these guns are not guns that have been purchased legally at all. There's just so many ways that people are getting illegal guns. We get a lot of ghost guns. People are making guns using like 3D printers, a lot of stolen guns, a ton of them. So you already know there's lots of construction going on in this area. So we get people who are from Virginia or other areas who are legal gun owners. They bring their guns into DC, but they know they're not supposed to carry them on their person unless they have a concealed carry permit. So they might put their gun in their glove box. And then somebody breaks into their car, takes their gun, then there's just another gun on the street. There's so many ways. I mean, I know the other day there was a young man who was arrested and he actually talked to the detectives and said he stole the gun out of somebody's car.
Okay.
So most of the guns that we get, I can tell you none of them, we don't arrest people who are lawful, legal gun
owners.
Right. And it's scary. I mean, I live in 5D as well. So I can tell you that when the officers are out there doing those traffic stops, they're not out there, they're out there like your average, citizen who just maybe has like a headlight out, the officer's going to say that. But when they see people acting nervous or they know them from the neighborhood, they know they've had guns before, they're taking the steps to get them off the street. And I really appreciate it as somebody who lives and works here myself, but we have no idea where they're all coming from. It's crazy.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, thank you. That was a great question. So let's move to questions from the public. And just a reminder for folks who are on the phone, you can press *9 in order to raise your hand if you're dialing in. From Josh Kramer, Lieutenant, how do you spell your name? Thank you.
Okay, so my name is spelled it's Zunnob as in boy, IA. And my last name is Hakir. I'm gonna put it in the chat. I tried to do it before, but I think it ended up it ended up being sent as a direct message. My apologies.
Okay,
I'm sending it now.
all right. Thank you for that. All right, and we'll give you a minute to type that in before
Yep.
we to the next question.
It's
I'm glad
done.
you spelled it because that wasn't my guess.
Oh.
Okay, and then from Patrice Lancaster, can we start requesting a monthly report of the number of 911 calls versus number of crimes reported in our ANC? Also, a monthly staffing plan for our ANC.
Okay, so the amount of 911 calls versus the amount of like actual crimes or police reports reported. The 911 calls that goes to OUC. OUC is like separate from MPD, although we work, very closely together. So anything that you all want from as it relates to 911 calls for service would have to come through OUC and likely would have to be through a FOIA request, is my guess. But I'm going to write that question down and present it to Captain Merrill and see if there's any other way around it. So I don't know about giving you that information, but as it relates to, did she say staffing? Can you read the rest of the question again?
Yes, also a monthly staffing plan for our ANC.
So I will present that question to Captain Merrill. I will say this. Everybody knows that the police department was defunded for the fiscal year 2021. So we didn't do any hiring at all in fiscal year 2021, which was really rough because you all know we had January 6th, and then we had lots of riots, and then we had COVID, and people are retiring because we did so much hiring in the late 80s and early 90s. So we're losing people at a much faster rate than we've been able to replace them, considering that we just started rehiring people in October. So that is the reason why the chief has given us overtime slots for day work and evenings. So the same officers are basically working those slots to make sure that we have adequate manpower or more manpower in areas that really need that special attention. So I'll check to see if the captain can provide you all with the staffing plan, but I'll tell you that we are working as hard as we can as it relates to getting as many people as we can to work and having them out there on the streets. But it's definitely not what it used to be because we haven't been able to hire people for a whole year. That really hurt our department as it relates to, numbers and staffing.
Okay. All right, and then Josie Thurston Watson, is there a plan for hiring in the upcoming fiscal years that you know of?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I believe the city council, I think the law is that we can hire 300 people per year. So when the fiscal year 2022 started, we had classes in the academy day one, multiple classes. So we have started hiring again. As you all know, law enforcement right now is not, people aren't banging down our door to be a police officer, unfortunately, but we are hiring, we are filling academy classes, but the turnaround period is kind of like it takes about 6 to 8 months to get out of the police academy from the day you're hired. So even though we started hiring in October, the people who are there still have only been in the academy maybe like about 4 months. And then they have to finish their classes. And then they have to go out on the street and be paired with a more senior officer who is a training officer who will train them on how to actually do the job. So the real turnaround for you to get an officer who can be out on the street on their own from the day they're hired to the day they can be alone is about almost 18 months, really. I would say it's about 14 months minimum. but it's almost 18 months. The training program is a few months too. So honestly, it's going to be probably another 6 to 8 months before we can get the people who got hired in October out here working for us. And we're going to be hiring every year unless something happens and we get defunded again, which I pray does not happen.
Okay. John Healy. Oh,
Sorry,
did you
if
want
I
to go
could
ahead?
just real quick. Lieutenant, not to minimize the good work that y'all do, but the MPD was not defunded. Mayor Bowser proposed a certain increase. The council agreed to a lesser increase. MPD
Okay.
was not defunded. So I just
Okay.
want to make that clear for everyone.
Okay, well, I can tell you that it's my understanding. I'm sure you probably, the information you have, I'm sure it's accurate, but whatever happened with the money, the hiring stopped for the whole fiscal year 2021. I do know that. We didn't have any classes in the academy, fiscal year 2021. So I know there were cadets who had been hired, who were on the department, who stayed in the program, but there was no new hires for regular sworn officers that were not cadets.
That I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, John Healy, not a question about crime, but about traffic safety. Can someone provide an update on the traffic and safety study that was planned for Bladensburg Road? Okay, so then this is not for MPD, so we'll hold that until the Q&A at the end of the meeting, because that's really a question for DDOT and not MPD. Okay. All right, so that's the last question. I'm just double checking here. That's the last, oh, actually, no. Anina Adelphio, you should be able to speak if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. Anina Adelphio.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Nate Mensa. Nina's my wife, and we're together. And I appreciate what Commissioner Cobb said as well about MPD not being defunded. And I just wanted to, he also said that point, but I also wanted to note, I'm currently looking at the numbers about police officers, and the numbers from 2019 and 2020, as well as 2021, the outflow of officers was exactly the same. So there is no down of the actual hiring or the loss of officers. And I know that all of us in 5D look and we see plenty of police officers in our neighborhood sitting in their cars, looking at their phones, not actually doing police work. I see that when I walk my dog. I see that when I walk home from work. So I don't know that there's the number of police officers is the issue as much of what the police officer are actually doing. The commissioner just said that the traffic safety is not for this officer, right? We talk a lot about these traffic stops, these car stops for weapons. And while that may not be for this officer, whatever those officers are doing clearly isn't making us any safer in 5D by just looking for people they may know in the neighborhood, right? Which is something that I think that, the courts and defense attorneys are going to have a field day with, that the lieutenant puts it in that sort of frame. So I wanted to say, I appreciate what Commissioner Cobb said and just kind of also clarify that point for everyone.
Okay, thank you. I can appreciate that. And what I would like to say is that if you see an officer that is just sitting in their car, which you would think if they're goofing off, take the car number down, like the number that's written on the back of the car or the side of the car. You can shoot us an email. You can take a picture and send us an email. You can be anonymous and call the watch commander phone and give us the information. We address those issues. When citizens bring those to our attention, we definitely don't take that lightly, because it's not just a safety issue for the citizens, it's also an officer safety issue. So it's twofold. So if you see that, please let us know. I mean, I can't, there's, a few hundred officers at the 5th district, and we try to put sergeants out on the street and go out there and, and manage them and monitor them. But at the end of the day, the citizens are going to see more than what we see. And we would appreciate if you would give us that information, even if you want to do it anonymously, we would appreciate it.
I'm assuming, and Nate, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name. I was back and forth. We're having a little bit of technical stuff going on in the background. But that is the last question I see for MPD this evening. Next up on our agenda, we do have an update coming from the mayor's office. I know, Mr. Hunter, you were having some challenges trying to join the meeting. If you have joined the meeting as an attendee, if you could raise your hand. If not, if you'll go ahead and give your report.
Thank you.
I am on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am here. Can everybody hear me?
Okay, great.
Okay. Let me hop off my other meeting. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me on. I would like to begin my update, giving you guys our COVID vaccine center location, which is located at 2350 Washington Place Northeast. This COVID center will be offering booster shot, COVID-19 vaccination shots. You will also be able to get your PCR test there, as well as your rapid antigen test. You are allowed to receive 2 masks per day at this location. The operation hour of this location is Tuesday to Sunday, and on Monday are the days that it's closed. The hours are 9. I'm sorry. It's 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and on Thursday is 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Sunday it is 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Again, you can always go on coronavirus.dc.gov to see other location of the COVID-19 center. Also, the limited public health emergency has been extended until February the 15th. To let you guys know that on the 15th, we will be required to have our second dose of vaccination shot to enter into any businesses or entities in the district. And also the indoor mask requirement has been extended through February 28th as well. Also, all district government employees must provide proof that they are up to date with the COVID-19 vaccination shot, including booster when eligible. For this week, Thursday, the mayor will be having her 2022 fiscal year budget engagement forum for the senior. So please feel free to let the seniors know, and also yourself, if you have like any concerns about any district program or budgets, or where the money is being pulled into the city. You are welcome to come on and share your insight, or share whatever concerns or questions that you may have. Make sure I'm gonna try to put the link into this into the chat, and also there will be another budget engagement forum taking place next week on Thursday, which will be at 6 p.m. Starting at 6 p.m. And this the one for this week will start at 12 p.m. Also the summer youth employment program has also started accepting application, which had opened January the 28th. So please, I encourage you all to have your youth and make sure to apply. Go to summerjob.dc.gov. You can also download the app where you can upload all the requirement documentation that is needed. And if any of you happen to have any issues or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to them. Make sure you have my information, so that way I can connect you with DOEF so you can get everything straightened. And also recently got the chance to connect with Commissioner Guzman, where we talk about basically doing a Trinidad cleanup day. Not only that, I know he's very passionate and concerned about keeping the community clean and bringing more resources in the area, to the family and residents. So we recently had a meeting with Department of Environment and Energy, DPW, Clean City, DOEF, and included Curtis Street, who are community leaders in the area as well. How we can all collaborate on an event where we can get the community involved and teach them about the importance of having a healthy and safe environment, and teaching people about recycling their trash. I know there's a lot of illegal dumpings and in alleyways. So I would have DPW come to the hot spots in the alley, and in the next day or two, the alley may get back to where it was. So we want to try to, we plan on doing something that would be consistent, where we can have not just the government agency but also the community work together. And that would be it. I would like to, open the floor for any additional questions or concerns that you guys may have.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your update. We appreciate that. First, we'll go to commissioners and then we'll go to the public for questions. And please note that if you're a call-in attendee, you can use *9 to raise your hand and ask a question. So commissioners, we'll start with you. Any questions? Okay. All right. So let's move right to public questions. And I think we have the same question really from two people, which is if you could say again what the address is for the COVID center, and then type that in the chat to everyone so that people can find that.
Sure. The address is 2350 Washington Place, Northeast. It's located where the Carolina Kitchen is right next to that location, Carolina Kitchen. So once you get there, it's like basically 2 doors down from there. You can't miss it.
And you said that's on Washington Place?
Yeah, Washington Place, 2350 Washington Place, Northeast.
Okay, so right next to the Rhode Island Avenue Metro stop.
The little shopping center there.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you for that. And if you could type that in the chat, we'd really appreciate it. Let me see if I have any questions on the phone line. Bear with me, folks. We're having some slowness on the back end. Okay.
Also, I'm sorry, before any questions, I also want to add that we also have a location for our seniors as well, which is located at the Model City Senior Wellness Center. And that address is 1901 Evart Street, Northeast. I'm gonna put that information in the chat along with the other location.
Okay, thank you for that. And then our next question from Patrice Lancaster: what date for the Trinidad cleanup? What's that date? I don't know if you already have a date planned for that.
Commissioner, have y'all set up a date just yet? I know I was told March the 12th about the rollout day.
So we have one working with the Office of Clean Streets and the Mayor's Office of Women's Policy Initiatives and Policies, or Policies Initiatives. I'm sorry, I forgot that wrong. That will be March 12th, specifically for 5D02 on the northern end of Trinidad. I'll talk about it more at the end of the meeting, but then we'll have a follow-up on April 9th, working with the mayor, the whole entire mayor's citywide effort for the Clean Street projects. So I'll be talking about that later in tonight's meeting. But that's a Saturday, March 12th.
All right, thank you for that. And I don't see any more questions here. So thank you so much for that update. We appreciate it. And if you could just put your contact information in the chat so that people can reach you.
Sure.
All right. Next up, we have the Ward 5 Council Members Office. I think Silas Grant. Mr. Grant, is here this evening to provide us with an update.
Good evening, everyone. Chairperson Moore, I thought I was not going to be able to make it due to the redistricting meeting that I was covering, but it ended much earlier than I expected. So good evening to everyone here in ANC 5D's monthly meeting. First, I want to start by acknowledging the fire that took place yesterday in Ivy City. And so I know that I believe happened on Commissioner Rhodes's block. And I believe it may have been her next door neighbors. And so I've been working with Nokomis from the mayor's office to be updated on that and to see how we can respond to that family. And so, you know, as we're in these winter months, situations like this are that much more serious. And so we're trying to figure out some solutions for them. We've been told that they've been relocated to a hotel for the time being, but we're trying to find some long-term solutions for them. So definitely they'll need the support of the community, and any way that we can support as an office, we'll try to do that. I'm going to be brief with my remarks. Two big things. As you all know, I've mentioned this a number of times during the COVID period. The council has been working in different iterations to provide funding for different segments of our population. And so most recently, the council member led the way to give DMPEG grant-making authority to be able to provide $40 million to small businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19 in a negative way. I'll put the link in the chat so that you all can disseminate that to businesses. The eligibility requirements are in the link, and so they'll be able to review that to determine if they are indeed eligible for a portion of that $40 million. The second thing I wanted to say, Chairperson Moore, is that as we do every year, the council is gearing up for our budget season. You all should have received the calendar for the oversight performance hearings. And so at this particular time, the council is entertaining all of the agencies that fall under all the committees. And the goal is to assess the performance of those agencies. And then shortly thereafter, we'll have the budget season kicking in. And so as a result of the budget season being upon us, we have a budget survey that our office is disseminating to residents throughout the ward. The idea of the survey is to help inform the council member as he establishes priorities for the ward. Some of the priorities will be priorities that he has identified based on the work that we do every day. But then also, again, he will be informed by the responses in the survey from everyday residents who see things on the ground. And so the COVID relief link, as well as the budget survey link, I will put in the chat. The final thing that I wanted to mention on this platform, I know that we received an email maybe a week or so ago from Commissioner Salcedo Guzman with respect to MPD. I wanted to let you know that that is on my radar. We had some other things going on over the last week or so, but we did have an internal discussion around a strategy to provide some MPD support for you all at that 11th and Wrong Place area. So I just wanted to let you know that on the record that we have received the email. And so just wanted to give you all a heads up as well. Some of you may have interacted in the past few months or years with Jonathan McNair. He's taking a temporary leave of absence for a couple of months. So if you reach out to him, you may receive an automatic reply. And so he won't be available between now and estimated mid-June. So he was a part of that conversation, Commissioner. And so initially we had him assigned to take the lead on that. And so because he took the leave, we had to recalibrate. So I'll be working with Kelly to get a response to you. Also, just want to make you all aware of our Chief of Staff, Marisa Flowers, who some of you may have been working with. She's actually the part of the office as well, but on a permanent level. We really appreciated her service for about 2.5 years. but she has another opportunity she's taking advantage of. So some of those requests that you may have reached out to her or John for, you can certainly reach out to me for, and we'll circle back, Commissioner, on those issues over in that 11th and Ron Place area. With that, I will end my presentation. Chairperson Moore, you can take it back and facilitate the questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's start out with commissioners, and then just a reminder, after commissioners, we'll move to the public. If you are on the phone line, you can use *9 to raise your hand, and we'll come to you for questions as well. So any questions from the commissioners? Okay, all right, let's move to public questions. I do see we have a hand raised from Ms. Diggs. Ms. Diggs, we're coming to you. All right. And you should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good evening, everyone. So, Mr. Grant, I was just at the redistricting meeting, and it actually seemed to be a call out for volunteers. Was I missing something, or was that the point of the meeting? And my question, actually, I raised my hand when Nokomis was on. I'd like to know when the K95 masks will be issued. I went to Hayes Senior Wellness Center today, and they still don't have theirs. And another one of our members happened to have gone to Model Cities, which I thought I saw something that said they had received theirs, and she said she'd been there, and they indeed had not.
So I'll answer the question that I can answer, and then I'll step out of the way for Nokomis to respond to the mask piece. With respect to redistricting, Ms. Diggs, quite honestly, I was hosting the redistricting meeting tonight, and I got some text messages from colleagues about some other issues, and then the meeting happened so fast. It was like maybe 14 to 15 minutes in its entirety that I actually missed the takeaways. And so I'm scheduled to talk to Nolan Treadway, one of the chairs of the committee, to actually get feedback on what the takeaways were. I know that they're supposed to have next steps around actually attacking the map and looking at the map. But the meeting again happened, it went so fast that I actually have to review the video to actually look at the takeaways. So in the event that there are opportunities for volunteers beyond the committee members that have been assigned, I'll certainly make sure that our office disseminates that information.
It was still positive. There were a lot of good information was disseminated. So thank you.
You're welcome. And Nokomis can answer the math piece.
Yeah, and I was just going to add that I know the videos from the meeting are available on the council members' website for those who want to go back and take a look.
Sure. So we originally were going to stream it on Facebook. We had some technical challenges, and so we ended up streaming it on YouTube. And so I'm going to double check tonight, because that meeting happened before this one. I'm going to double check tonight to make sure that it's actually up on the YouTube page. But we do have it in our cloud as well. So one way or the other, we'll have a recording that will be public for people to review at a later time.
Thank you for that. And then Nokomis, I don't know if you're still on the line to answer that mask question. Okay. He did provide his information, his contact information in the chat. So he has multiple meetings that he's juggling between ANCs right now. So if you want to reach out to him directly, I'm sure he can answer that for you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. And let's take a look to see if we have any other questions.
And I'll add one thing I really would like. So we've got like this little internal competition. I may have shared this with you all last year, but the staff members who cover meetings, we've got this competition to be able to get the most survey responses. And so because I cover 5D, I would certainly ask you all to please chime in on the survey. The survey actually asks what ANCs you live in. And so if I can get the 5D section to be the highest or among the highest, that would definitely be a personal win for me in the office. So please click that link, fill the survey out, share it with folks who live in 5D, and help me out with that competition.
All right. Well, that's one way to go about it. We are deeply invested in seeing you win that competition. So
thank you.
Work on that. Let's see. Any other questions for the council member's office? I don't see anyone else with a question for the council member's office on the line. Okay. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate that update from your.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Next up, we are supposed to have Peter Alvarado from the sports betting office on the line this evening to kind of talk through, the current status of things with sports betting and the regulatory framework, which is still in the works, doesn't fully exist as yet, but I don't see him on the line. So Mr. Alvarado, if you are on the line, if you could use the raise hand feature to raise your hand. If not, we'll go ahead and move forward in the agenda to the requested presentations. Okay, all right. And then just a note to everyone, if you could please only type questions in the Q&A, that would really help us out so that we could keep track of which questions are actually answered. Okay, all right. So I don't see anything from Mr. Alvarado. Let's go ahead and move forward in the agenda to requested presentations. I see we've got the folks from 2229 M Street Northeast on the line. If in regard to a potential development at that location. Do you need to share your screen with us? Okay, give us just a moment and we'll give you that capability to do it. Who is going to be operating the screen? Okay.
I will, Commissioner.
Okay, great.
Trying to figure out how to make it a full screen presentation. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we can see your screen now, but.
Is that what?
No, we're still seeing the preview for the upcoming slides. But I can see the images clearly.
Did that work?
Yep, there you go.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for making the time for me to come meet with the 5D community and make this very preliminary presentation on the proposed development at 2225 to 2229 M Street Northeast. My name is Marcus Goodwin. I'm leading the development team that is proposing to develop these two lots, which we currently have under contract concurrently. We are in the early stages of planning, design, and development, but I've been able to bring some of our very preliminary sketches of what we will propose here, and I can explain some of the details of the development plan to date. As you all well know, as members of the community, 2225 and 2229 M Street are near the terminal point of M Street and Maryland Avenue in the 5D community, directly south of the Arboretum southern border, which is M Street. The development team is comprised of two development companies and Housing Up. Outlier Realty develops in the District of Columbia, primarily focused on co-living, but is now working into the affordable development space. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm representing Goodwin Companies, which is focused on primarily affordable housing, committed to enhancing neighborhoods, creating beautiful and environmentally friendly communities. And we'll talk about some of our efforts in that regard. The third member of the development team is Housing Up. Housing Up is a nonprofit entity in the District of Columbia as the owner of several hundred housing units in the district, believing in people who have safe, affordable housing and genuine opportunities being empowered to transform their lives. We're very fortunate to have Housing Up as a partner because of their 3+ decade-long experience in owning and operating affordable housing communities in the district. The development plan, which I'll dig more and more into to date, is comprised of two parcels, 2225 and 2229 M Street, which are both under contract to close in the coming month. The sites total 15,000, just over 15,000 square feet. We plan in mid-March to submit a PUD to the Zoning Commission, presenting to the community, the Zoning Commission, and the Office of Planning, which has indicated that the comprehensive plan in the future land use map would support a rezoning to RA4. Under RA4, the site would allow up to 90 feet and just over a 5.0 FAR. Our proposed development would total between the above grade and below grade level, which is a cellar level, half above and below the lowest height of the property, which is lowest elevation of the property, which is facing M Street, would total 92,000 square feet, of which 75,000 square feet would be above grade. The proposed project, as currently designed, very preliminarily, would total 54 studio units, 53 one-bedrooms, and 13 two-bedrooms. The project will include the following elements that have been listed, including a community room, fitness center, bike and repair station, tenant storage, a rooftop, solar panels, and a beautifully landscaped entry along M Street. And of course, I will pause at the end of the presentation for any questions, and I can go back to any of these parts that anyone's reading. But the most important part to highlight is that the development plan is for high quality senior affordable housing units, specifically focused on the 55 plus population. On the left, these preliminary drawings reflect our massing study, which demonstrate the height and width of the building that is proposed across both 2225 and 2229 M Street. M Street here to the north and Maryland Avenue here to the south. The building has an L shape with 8 stories above grade and a cellar level. Here we have the parking spaces laid out. We have a loading dock and another delivery space here. We may convert that to another parking space and find a way to create a delivery space at the street frontage on M Street, which will be the entryway and the front door to the property. These are very preliminary sketches. Over the next month, as we plan, as I said, call it mid-March, to prepare a submission to the Zoning Commission, we will be advancing these drawings and considering how many units we will have on site. Although the current unit mix, which I described before, is what we are planning for and what our yield and massing studies have told us we can accomplish thus far. Here are some of the community issues that we have heard in our initial conversations with both the ANC and neighbors who live directly adjacent to the property. These are 6 that we have noted and will work diligently alongside the community to find solutions, of course, which will impose a cost on the project, but we are comfortable and happy to, as far as we can, make any reasonable accommodation and think creatively about ways to solve these issues. The first is a water drainage community that came to our attention, flooding and pooling of water on heavy rain days. The second is the capacity of utilities, which in all developments, we're cognizant of ensuring that there is sufficient capacity for water, gas, and electric. The third is snow removal when it snows, and we had a quite snowy winter thus far, and to be seen if we'll have any in February. The fourth is an illegal trash dumping that occurs at the terminal point of M and Maryland Avenue, and we are already on top of the installation of security cameras on the proposed building to help identify and deter the dumping of trash. 5 was the bus not running as regularly as it had pre-pandemic. And the 6th and final point was poor cell phone reception in the area. So these are community issues that have been brought to our attention to date and thus far, and we are diligently focused as we progress the development plans on finding solutions that can work collaboratively with the development team and the neighborhood and residents. That will conclude the presentation thus far. Of course, we, the development team, plan to come back as often as is necessary or as we are requested and answer any questions about the development as it is proposed and as it progresses. We're very excited about the opportunity to work to provide housing in this community, especially senior affordable housing, which there's a serious lack of across the district, and think that will add both value architecturally, as well as community amenities and space that will be serving to that population which we're building the housing for, including any other ways that we can solve those local community issues that we want to be collaboratively a part of it. I'm happy to share my information by email, and maybe one of my colleagues who are with Outlier Realty, they're on the call, but they're not elevated to the level of panelist. I'm also joined in this call by our attorney at Goldston Stores, our zoning counsel, Megan Hoddle-Cox. So she's here and available for any questions that relate to zoning that I have not yet answered or that I can answer. Commissioner Moore, I now yield the balance of the presentation to any questions from commissioners or the community, and hopefully I can answer them. If not, I'll take notes and try to bring it back to answer in the very soon future, as well as share our contact information. We're happy to have conversations by phone or Zoom over the coming months.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate this update. Certainly, I think there have been a few changes since we initially spoke, because I think it was originally just the 2229 property that you all were looking at. And so now I see the addition of the 2225 property, which I think yields some additional opportunities. I'm going to go through a few questions that I know the answer to, but I think it's worthwhile to go ahead and make sure that the community fully grasps what's going on. Right now, is the plan currently to do a planned unit development at the site?
Yes.
Okay, and then what phase are you at? You've submitted preliminary paperwork?
We've submitted a notice of intent to file with the zoning commission.
Okay, all right, and then I'll yield that time to any additional questions from commissioners. Once commissioners have asked their questions, then we'll move to questions from the public. And just a reminder to folks, if you're joining us on the phone, you can dial *9 so that you can raise your hand and ask questions. So any questions from the commissioners on the line?
Yes, I have 2 questions, Commissioner.
Go for it.
Mr. Goodwin, I have questions. You mentioned affordable housing multiple times. Can you explain to me in terms of this project what that means and what are the planned rates for these units?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are 2 primary mechanisms that fund affordable housing in the district, and there are 2 pricing schedules that the project could or would adhere to, depending on which way we ultimately finance it. One is if we finance it through the Housing Production Trust Fund, which is a popular way that affordable housing is getting funded in the district right now. And there's an annual process, notice of funding available, request for proposals that people apply for, typically in December. That would require a number of the units to be at 0 to 30% AMI, 30 to 50%, and then the balance up to 80% AMI. The alternate way, which would be through federal tax credits and state tax credits, tax credit equity, and bond financed, would allow up to 60% of AMI. So one of those 2 ways, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me for what 0 to 30, 30 to 50, and up to 80 would equate to on a studio, 1-bed and 2-bed basis, but that's all publicly available. And as a follow-up to this email, I just made a note to send that to the commissioners.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, go ahead.
And then my final question, you brought up on your PowerPoint presentation, you brought up community issues. What were the issue and you mentioned and you stated and showed the issues with the area and some of the issues that a lot of the residents are facing. What are the issues that residents have addressed with the development?
I'm sorry.
Did you not?
The question was beyond the issues that exist that they would like to see us address. What are the issues with the development itself?
Yes, with this project. I'm sure you probably got some feedback on what the project would potentially cause.
Well, I would say two things, and this is off the top of my head. I think one, well, because it's been so preliminary, we probably haven't given enough definitive designs for there to be a lot of issues. But one was that flooding issue and the concern that the development could possibly contribute to that already existing flooding issue. The other was around parking and determining if we on site were parking the requisite number of cars given the number of units. So those are both, I would say, the issues that have been requested that we address specifically about the proposed development. And I can't say that we have the exact answers right now, but those would be the two.
Okay. No, I was just asking because you showed a big list of some of the ones in terms of the area, but in terms of the project, I'm sure our residents here in 5D have given you plenty of feedback and comments on that. So I appreciate you sharing some of those.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And then Commissioner Cobb, I don't know if you had any questions.
Nothing from me.
Okay, I will, just because I'm piggybacking off of what Commissioner Sauceda Guzman had to say, I will say that just as by way of background and then commentary on my part, we did recently undergo a rezoning in this area. And although it's not in my single member district, I know that the commissioner for that district was also very supportive. And so I think people do have kind of a set expectation in terms of height. And what we have now is really a major difference of about, well, actually more than twice the height of the adjacent building. And so especially now that I'm seeing that, this potential plan would include 2225, I think if there is a desire to go higher, in order to achieve some of the benefits, I think there has to be a consideration about stepping down the height so that it's not such a stark contrast between this property and the adjacent properties. I know I haven't gotten into, we've got a long list of Q&A from folks in the community, but I know we're going to hear that as a feedback just because, we went through that process for years. And a major part of that was that exactly that type of community feedback. So let's go into questions from the public. Desiree Williams says, it's surprising there are no noted concerns regarding parking limitations. So I don't know if that was some feedback that you got from nearby residents, but Ms. Williams shares that concern. John Healy, did you say 8 stories above ground? I think we're headed to my, that's more than twice as tall as any other building in that area of the neighborhood. Most others are 2 to 3 stories. Did the builders get a variance from the city? And no, they don't have a variance from the city. Part of the process of a planned unit development, and then I'll let you respond to Mr. Healy's comment, is that basically they are in the process of notifying us and requesting potential changes to the zoning in exchange for certain benefits to the community, including things like for affordable housing for seniors, the environmental cameras that they mentioned. But my commentary is always that the community benefits have to be commensurate with the level of change that we're seeing in the variance. And so, Mr. Goodwin, I'll let you go ahead and respond to that comment.
Thank you very much for the comment. Certainly the height is something that I think has been noted. First and foremost, the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, the initial indication that we've gotten from our Office of Planning is that the proposed height is aligned with the intent of the future land use map, which the council introduced and passed. Certainly, when you have a use like senior affordable housing, which is in high need in the district, they're willing to consider the height, even if it's different than the existing building fabric. I think that's one reason that we've gotten early indication that this is a desired or acceptable proposed development. However, as you also mentioned, Commissioner Moore, there is certainly a large amount of community benefits and a collaborative effort that the developer will have to make a firm commitment to from the outset of any going forward approval. Today, we're informing the ANC, but in the future, no doubt, we'll be asking the ANC formally for their support. And that would be key and critical to us ultimately fulfilling our development vision here. So this is the beginning of a long conversation that will provide a comprehensive set of mutually agreed upon community benefits for that to be approved. So nothing is approved to date or agreed upon by any district agency or entity.
Yeah. Okay, so next up, Josh Kramer. In case no one else asked this question, are all 120 units 55 plus affordable housing? And I believe you answered the portion of the question regarding AMI already.
Yeah, the answer is yes. All units are senior affordable housing.
All right, and Josie Thurston Watson, is there going to be an effort made to employ local citizens for job opportunities?
Yes. To date, we've been working with Hamill Builders, who I have professional and years past experience working with as a general contractor. They know well, and they're one of the best performing general contractors in the District of Columbia for including local tradespeople from the immediate geographic area, not just across the District of Columbia. So I think in both regards, we have set to them the expectation, not just for the legal requirement for 35% of trades to be performed by local district contractors, but also local workers who have trade skills, in addition to all of their efforts that will be marketing and advertising any trade that a local tradesperson who's properly licensed, bonded, insured, and qualified can participate in. So that will certainly be a part of the general contracting process.
Okay, and John Healy, I'm also curious about parking and transportation. Delta Towers and the new development on Bladensburg Road Northeast are specifically for seniors 55 plus. This location seems remote at the 2225, 2229 location. Seems remote, far from public transit. Will the project include a parking garage?
So far, we have not included a parking garage. As those who are familiar with the neighborhood and that block specifically know, and maybe not numerically, from M Street to the alley, which is at the southern end of the property, the southern border of the property, there's about a 12-foot height differential, and there's a large retaining wall near the south alley side of the property. So it would be incredibly difficult and prohibitively costly for us to dig in the alley, frankly, I think impossible, and turn that level into on-site parking. One thing that we've obviously noticed going around the immediate neighborhood is that because it is a road that does not go through on M and Maryland, there's a lot of unmarked area that would accommodate local cars. We certainly don't plan on that accommodating anyone else in addition who would have cars on site. But we understand from our market study and research that seniors are not driving as much as if this were a market rate project. And part of the accommodation is the large bike run that we've installed, and as well as the rooftop amenities, which are part of the consideration for what we're building on site, making it as nice an on-site community as possible. But we know that that's going to be one of the big challenges of our site, and we're continuing to work with our architect and general contractor to find the best ways to accommodate parking. And I presume some of the work that we're going to do is going to get to the streetscape and start addressing like the fact that, you know, out front there's parts of no sidewalk that, or sorry, no curb that exists. So that's one of the things we're talking with our general contractor now about addressing.
Mhm. But I think to the parts that of that location that lack a curb are beyond the property boundaries for you. And I think that there's some back and forth as to who owns that adjacent property. Have you been able to do any research as to who that is?
Well, the property to the north is the federal government.
Yeah.
And there is actually a curb to a point that it ends. And the early conversations we've had with our traffic study consultant, Gorov and Slade, indicate that one thing that is typically asked by DOT is continuation or fixing of curbs. So we expect that that's going to be a part of the conversation that we have with them. And I think that that will help add accommodation to any street parking that's, you know, be off or on street parking.
Okay, well, I think that's interesting. I think this is kind of a unique situation too, and that's, you know, you've got a mix of federal property, district property, and the federal government and the district have a long-standing battle, typically in regards to illegal dumping over, you know, who is responsible there. The other thing I wanted to add here is that I think it's important for people to realize too that although this area is currently not an entrance for the Arboretum, the Arboretum has already put in their long-term plans that that entrance will be opened as a pedestrian and bike entrance. And so we would expect to see an increase at a minimum in foot and bike traffic in that area. And I would say potentially cars, just due to the simple fact that, you know, you can't enter that way unless you dismount your vehicle and actually walk through that smaller opening. So I think that that is also something to consider as we try to make sort of longer term plans. So next up, we have a few similar questions comparing this development to Delta Towers. John Healy already asked that question. Kevin Horgan, when I think about senior housing and 5D, I think about the recent Delta Towers development, which yielded 179 units. I believe all of those are one-bedroom units, which are much more desirable to seniors. Why are so many of the proposed units studios? Will you present a development plan which features only one-bedroom units? And in addition, Mr. Horgan adds, the proposed 8 stories means this building would appear similar in height to the tall side of Delta Towers, which faces H Street.
Thank you. Certainly Delta Towers being down Maryland Avenue at the terminal point where it hits Bladensburg makes it one of the projects that we often look at that does serve senior citizens, seniors, those who are 55 plus. However, we have done the drawings and designs and looked at an option that would include all one bedrooms, and the way that it laid out wasn't best suited to the L shape of the property. I think on all sides, Delta Towers actually has no abutting property lines, and it has an alley in the rear side off that street that's on the north side of it. The way that it lays out best, and the feedback that we've gotten early from a senior expert property management firm, is that 13 2-bedrooms, which is, really, 10% of the units proposed, makes sense because there are some seniors who need to have someone living with them, or will choose to have someone living with them so that, seniors who are friends or family members who would both qualify to be in the building can have a shared living space. That diversity of unit types, studios, 1s and 2s, was sought to be, given the design restrictions and space restrictions of our site, the most desirable layout. We're continuing to look at the layout and design though, and that certainly either number count or unit count is not absolutely final. So we'll ultimately come to what we think is the best number of each type of units. And, it may be similar, it may be changed. I assume we're going to come back on a monthly basis when requested to present to the ANC and tell you how our designs have advanced.
Mhm. Okay, well, thank you for that. I think that is all I see in the way of questions on this topic. I'm just going to check the phone lines very quickly. That's all I see. So thank you for staying online to answer all of our questions. And I'll just say that I look forward to seeing updated plans that incorporate some of the feedback that I think you all have received tonight, especially in regards to potentially stepping down the height to something that doesn't quite, cause such a jarring shift between that 22-25 side and the adjacent properties. But we'll see what you guys come up with, and we'll stay in close communication. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to make one statement, we will circle up internally. I've taken notes on this conversation. That's why I took down the presentation that I was showing earlier so I can take notes. Follow up with you on the 0 to 30, 30 to 50, 50 to 60, and then the up to 80% AMI, the two different AMI ranges that, and then the up to 60, the two different range possibilities that we could do for this site. I think part of the reason that it's built out to the size that it is that we need a certain green area ratio on the penthouse level, and we need a large solar panel system. Once we advance the designs, we'd be happy to share and show you the solar panel that we have planned for the rooftop and the green area and green space and rooftop garden that we have planned. So being able to preserve those two is critically important, and keeping it at the size as proposed would help us accomplish that. So those are the last points.
What's the current green area ratio?
I cannot tell you that exact number, but that'll be a part of the follow-up email that I share with you.
Okay. I'd like to see that comparison. All right, thank you.
Continue to, increase the green consideration for developments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in terms of the zoning, it'll stay the same. The question is, as a planned unit development, is the proposal how far off is it gonna veer from the current zoning?
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much. And I think next up, we'll hear from the folks working on 801 20th Street Northeast in terms of your project. Mr. Teran, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, good evening, everyone, commissioners.
Okay, all right. And then what we'll do is, do you have a presentation that you need to share with us?
Yes, there's some photos, 3D, sun studies.
All right, we'll go ahead and give you the ability to share. You can just go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, everyone can see the photos?
Mm-hmm.
So the subject property is this corner unit, 801, and we're proposing to put another floor and to add space in the back. We're going to BZA because we are asking for an additional, I believe it was 7'6" on the rear yard. And I'll just go through a few of these pictures just so you have a bearing of where it is. This is the end unit. As you can see, there's a first floor that extends past the second floor. And we're proposing to take that to the allowed 10 feet and then plus another 7'6". This would be the south wall. And in the sun study, we'll show you, the differences between what's by right and what we're asking for and how it affects these properties on the north side. I'm just going through these pictures quickly. This is the alley. Right across the alley are these two developments. As you can see, these are larger than what we're proposing, and they have deeper extensions than what we are proposing as well. And we'll just quickly look at a few other examples in the neighborhood along the block. Just so you can see, we are staying within the character of the neighborhood with this type of development that we're proposing. Across the street, there's a 3-story addition as well. Down in the corner as well, there's a bigger development, and they're all zoned within the same zone. Across the street, 20th Street.
I just want to make a quick correction. They're actually not all zoned within the same zone.
Was that a different one on the corner?
Yeah, and it's
Okay,
also illegal construction, some of what you're showing. So
well, that's good to know then.
Yeah.
All right, so
not the best examples.
We will delete this one, and I was surprised to see how big it was, but yes, these other ones are. This is along 20th Street, a few houses to the north. And just showing that extension.
Also illegal construction.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
How do they think they could get away with it?
Well, their licenses are revoked, so I don't think they plan on getting one.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, so take away those two. That's good to know. So we'll go to the proposed plans. Here's the site plan. This is lot 20. And this is the addition, and then a little bit back here is what we're proposing for that special exception. We're proposing 3 units. Unit A will consist of 4 bedrooms. You come in on the first floor where you'll have the public space, go down the floor, have the bedrooms, and then you come up the stairs to the second floor. You actually go, where's Unit B? Yeah, you come up to Unit B, and you will go, where's Unit B? You come up to Unit B, and you have another 2 bedrooms here, and you go downstairs back to the first floor. So Unit A and B make up the first floor. Second floor is all Unit B. And we go up to the 3rd floor, and we have, sorry about that, 3rd floor here is Unit C, which is a 2-bedroom. And then we do have some stairs going up to a roof deck, which would be up here. And we go to the elevations. I'll do these a little bit quick because I do have 3D images. But this is the front elevation. This area in light gray is what's existing. And this is what we're proposing. And this would be the alley elevation. And then the side elevation along H Street this is the type of aesthetics that we're looking at. So we're trying to break it up so it's not just one big rectangle. And then this would be the neighbor on the north side, where this is the existing residence, and this is what we're proposing. And then if we go to the 3D images, this is what we're proposing and how it would be compared to the neighbor to the north. And from the corner of 8th Street and 21st or 20th Street. And you can see we're trying to break up the massing. So it's not just one big rectangular block as most 3-story additions are. We're proposing kind of 2 blocks here and then a pitched roof on the back. And this is what it would look from the side. We are changing the entrance from 20th Street onto 8th Street. So this would be the main entrance for the 3 units. And this is what we're proposing. So it's actually 7.84 past the 10 feet is what we're requesting. And it does conform to the 20-foot rear yard setback. And so you can see here, this is the 10 feet, and that's the extra space right there. And if we go to the sun studies, I think this is really what will show that even though we are asking for an extension, it's not really doing any difference, by what's allowed by right. This is 9 a.m. You can see there's really no difference in the shading. The matter of rights on the right and the left is the proposed. If we go to 12 p.m., you can see the extra shaded area is all in the yard. Nothing happens to the house. It's still, it's exact same thing as the matter of right. Then we go 3 p.m. As you can see, the extra shaded area is onto the alley. So it doesn't affect any of these houses on North. This was during summer. The next one, the winter, 9 a.m. is probably the one that obstructs it the most. But you can see the house immediately to North, it's a tiny little triangular piece. And the house, one more above that, does get a little bit of extra shade. But once we get to 12 o'clock, there is really no extra shade onto these houses to the north. It is onto the yard. And then 3 o'clock, it's just way to the other side across the alley. Now that's the quick presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or to go over anything else in detail.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just reiterate for folks that we'll start with commissioner questions, then we'll move to questions from the public. And if you're on the line, you can dial *9 in order to raise your hand, and then we'll come to you for a question on the phone line. I am the commissioner that represents this particular district, so I'm very familiar with the zoning here. And I want to say that in addition to the examples that were shown as this is the community standard that were illegal construction, also the remaining examples are outside of the zoning for the neighborhood. And those examples are kind of especially sore spots and examples of why we changed the zoning in this community, because we were getting development that was frankly so disrespectful to the adjacent neighbors. And not only do those developments affect the adjacent neighbors, and I want this to be clear for folks who are listening, it sets a precedent. And you see an example of that in this presentation, which is that then someone else buys a property to development and they believe that that's the standard, even when it's not. And B, it sets a legal precedent in the fact that the way setbacks work is that once one property has an extension, that leaves the next property that's adjacent open to an even further extension backward. And so we've had cases like this over the years. And I think it's important for people to understand that it's not just a matter of the impact on that adjacent neighbor right now at this particular moment in time, but every single neighbor who lives on that block, because how the setbacks work is that if your neighbor has already gone back 10 feet, and then you come in and say, I want to build an extension. Now you have the 10 feet that neighbor has gone back plus the 10 feet beyond that. And then the next neighbor goes, well, I've got the 20 feet from the two neighbors, and then I've got the additional 10 feet. And so that's not always possible on all of these lots, just because at some point you run out of feet. But I think it's important to realize that in general, zoning works on the basis of precedent. And so it's not that it's just a one-off and we're making a very narrow decision. It's that we're making a decision that affects 50 homes. And so I'll just tell you that, that's the first issue that I have with this, and why I wouldn't support, an extension in this particular situation, just because I don't think it has any benefit to the community that really outweighs the negative impact on all of the other properties that would be impacted by this. And then B, I have a question in terms of the request, because we did some preliminary review of this at our zoning committee hearing last month, simply because, we saw this BZA case pop up. And I see where there's this request in regards to the 10-foot extension. But it appears that from some of the drawings that we found online that there should probably also be a request in terms of the height. Can you explain here? I know that you guys had some preliminary design meetings with DCRA. I saw those on the books. Can you explain why there's not a request here for a height extension, and what the result was of that design meeting with DCRA in terms of the height?
Yeah, so the height is 40 feet. and that is taken from the midpoint of the roof, of the sloped roof. And so you're really taking it from the way DCRA zoning classifies it is the midpoint of this roof here, which would be right here. So that here is 39 foot and 8 inches. So that classifies it as below or within the zoning guidelines. That's why the parapet, well, actually the parapet could even go 4 feet higher than the allowed 40 feet. And it's probably about 39, 38 feet.
So what is the basis for that? Can you tell us what the rule is?
For the height?
Yeah, in regards to the height. Like
So-
what particular rule did they cite for that measurement? I've not seen that.
I'm not
before.
sure exact code that it's on, but I know with pitched roofs, the height is taken from the midpoint of the slope. For flat roofs, it's taken from the flat portion of the roof. And then parapets could go up to 4 feet over the flat roof. So the parapet, if we had this flat roof going all the way up to 40 feet, the parapet could go, in theory, up to 44 feet. And that'd be by right.
Okay, all right. And whenever you get a chance, I know, I guess you guys already had this design meeting with DCRA.
Yes.
That already happened. If you could,
Yeah.
if you could forward that information, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. All right. And any other questions from ANC Commissioner colleagues before we jump into questions from the public? And just a reminder, please put your questions in the Q&A rather than the chat if you have questions. And if you're on the phone line, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and we'll come to you for a question or comment.
None for me, Chairperson. You addressed all my concerns. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
None for me either.
Okay, and I don't see any questions coming up. Spoke too soon. Let's take a look. Andrew Grimberg, if you did not get the special exception, what kind of project would you build? Would you only be able to, I guess, build, we're missing a verb here, build fewer units?
By right, we could still build 3 units. They'd be smaller. I don't know if they would make sense anymore for the owner. His plan was to rent the 2 lower units and live on the 3rd floor. So I don't know, if we had to go back 7.5 feet, these rooms will get much smaller. This probably wouldn't be living space or big enough. So yeah, he'd probably still want to do 3 units, but I don't know if they'd be big enough in order to, for him to get the rent for the lower units.
Okay, and then I'll just comment just to say, I know we have actually several cases from the same owner. So you're sure that the owner is interested in living in this particular property?
Yeah, this is the only one I'm doing for him. And
Okay.
he's, yeah.
Okay.
As far as
All
I
right.
know.
Well, we'll note that. I mean, we hear that a lot at these meetings.
A lot.
The mixed results.
Really?
Yeah. Josie Thurston Watson. Are these rental or condos?
He hasn't decided. I think he's first looking at making rentals, maybe eventually make them condos, but it's up in the air as far as I know.
Okay, and then Kevin Horgan, thank you, Mr. Teran, for providing detailed 3D renders. Can you please clarify the number of bedrooms in each unit?
Yes, in unit A, you have, this is unit A, you come in on the 1st floor, and in the basement, you'll have the 4 bedrooms. And then unit B, you have 2 bedrooms on the 1st floor, and you come up the stairs, and you'll get to another 2 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, where you also come into unit B. And then on the 3rd floor, unit C only has these 2 bedrooms facing the corner. So it'd be 4, 4, and 2.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for that. Let's check the phone lines to see if we have any questions on the phone. Okay, and I am not seeing any. What we'll probably do, just for your awareness, is go ahead and schedule this for a vote next month so that we're not missing any of the BZA deadlines. If you want to incorporate any feedback from myself, the other commissioners or neighbors. Prior to that, please let us know as soon as possible. And then my final question is whether you have received any communications from the adjacent property owner.
The adjacent one right north of us?
That's the only adjacent you have.
Yeah, we have received some support and some letters. But yeah, the one up north, right north of it, she does not like the idea of any type of building. She prefers it to stay 2 stories. So I don't know if it's, I mean, by right you'll see what we can do by right. So it's really, it's a 7 feet. I think she just doesn't want anything. So she's kind of been closed off to our advances and trying to share the project with her.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then I haven't heard of any support from the adjacent property owners. But if you can provide that before our upcoming vote, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, we'll definitely will.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, you as well. Okay. And then the next item on our agenda, we have Brian Smith. I haven't seen Mr. Smith on the line for the NOMA bid. Mr. Smith, if you are here, we'll give you just a moment to raise your hand. And if you'll use that raise hand feature, if you're out in the audience, we'll go ahead and try to find you so that you can be listed as a presenter and make your presentation. Okay, we do see you now as a panelist, Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith, do you have a presentation that you need to share with us? Do you need to share your screen?
I do, please. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and you should have that authority to share your screen now.
Perfect. Is that visible?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Brian Smith. I'm with the NOMA Business Improvement District. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to share an update on a project that's been in works for a number of years. Some of you may be familiar with this project, and that is the NOMA Gallaudet Metro Station and our push for a new entrance to the station from 3rd Street. The bid is serving really as a convener for a coalition of a number of entities like Gallaudet, Two Rivers, Union Market, and a number of other property and business owners who are advocating for this new station. So this first conversation is really just intended to share an update with you about the project. And I know they have 5 minutes on the agenda, so I'll be really efficient and try to share an update quickly on this. So this slide I'll run through really quickly. It's no surprise, NOMA is still growing. There are a number of projects in the bid and adjacent areas like Union Market that are continuing to bring residential units, hotel rooms, and retail, both NOMA and Union Market. And so these are projects that are not, far off into the distance, but really there's going to be big changes even between now and next year. And so the challenge with that growth is that it can be really difficult to access the NOMA Gallaudet Metro Station from a number of the developments and points east in general, and neighborhoods that are east of the train tracks. And so that includes areas like Union Market and other parts of ANC 5D. You can see here that this is one of the primary ways that you would get to the northern entrance of the Metro Station, is going through Florida Avenue. And, at best it's unpleasant, but at worst it is unsafe to traverse through Florida Avenue. There have been 7 crashes with injury between 2nd and 4th Street Northeast in 2021. And one of those included a cyclist. And so here, the goal is to create a new pedestrian entrance to the Metro Station from 3rd Street on the east side of the tracks. If you were to walk there today, you'd see at the corner of 3rd and N Street a large cutout that's in the building under construction there at Armature Works. The developer Trammell Crow put in a cutout in anticipation of the district putting in the new entrance. that would lead to the metro station. So that tunnel would tunnel under the tracks and take you directly to the station, and also onto the intersection of N Street and 2nd Street on the west side of the tracks. The ANC 6C, which is the ANC for that district, really advocated for the developer to do this during his PUD process. And so here on the map, you can see the difference that the new entrance would make in terms of access. So residents coming from the east side of the tracks, particularly Union Market and other neighborhoods and areas within ANC 5D, would be able to access the station directly from the new 3rd Street entrance. And so instead of having to go again through Florida Avenue the way I showed you, going up to 2nd Street and then coming south on 2nd Street to get to the entrance, residents would be able to enter directly through the new entrance at 3rd Street. And so there are a number of benefits to this, including connectivity, public safety, environmental and health benefits, and economic development. In the sake of time, I'm only going to address 2 of those, just to kind of give a primer on 2 that I think are really important. One is the increased connectivity. And so as we all know, it's a pretty congested area, both in Noma and Union Market, with a lot of vehicular traffic. There's a new office building in Union Market. And so the goal is to make it easier to take Metro in order to take more cars off the road, especially, again, we've got a lot of office and residential that are coming on the east side of tracks. And so the route through the 3rd Street entrance is a lot shorter, and therefore, and there's a lot more pleasant to get to. And so if it's shorter and pleasant, we think more people will actually take Metro or consider it as a transportation alternative. The other important thing that we really emphasize with this new entrance is the improvements it'll make to public safety. One in particular area is with students. So there are a lot of students from Two Rivers, with KIPP, Gallaudet. A number of those students take the Metro. And so the 3rd Street entrance would allow them to go directly from N Street into the Metro station without having to traverse some of the more busier routes like Florida Avenue. And again, we think this would help to be a contributor to the mayor's Vision Zero goal. And so here is our ask. We are asking for $50 million in the district's FY23 budget to support the 3rd Street Noma Metro entrance. And just so you know, you guys may know this, but a little history: the money for the project was previously included in a previous budget, but the funding didn't make it into the FY22 budget. And so now we're just asking for the funding for this project, just knowing how big of an impact it will have on safety and access for the community. And so the ask for 5D, and again, I know this can't be done today, but the ask for 5D is simply to write a letter of support for the project. We presented this to ANC 6C, their transportation committee, and they're writing a letter of support for the project. And so, again, I know that this is kind of the first meeting of probably others, but the goal would be to ideally ask for a letter of support, assuming that you support the project. And I'm happy to, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about this. Happy to answer any questions. And again, happy to come back and share any additional updates about the project.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. If you don't mind, could you turn your slideshow back to the map image? I think that might be the most helpful for folks who are trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. So first off, per usual, we'll start with a round of questions from the commissioners, if there are any, and then we'll move to public questions. And please remember that folks on the phone can dial *9 to raise your hand and ask a question and participate as well. So commissioners, any questions from you all?
Just one question. Assuming that the FY23 funding comes through, when would this open?
So we're at the beginning part of the process in terms of design. We're looking at probably about FY25, 26 before this would open, because it hasn't gone through all of the engineering. So it would be a few years for the actual tunnel to go into construction. Again, the good thing is that the cutout is already in place, and the plaza there at Armature Works is already and will be designed when that project opens later this year. But in terms of the actual entrance to the metro station, it won't open for another 3 or 4 years.
Thank you.
My question is, since when has this project been, I guess, trying to be implemented? How long have y'all been coming up with this idea for this particular project? Just knowing the area that's been highly developed in the past couple of years and highly gentrified, I could see obviously that there's value to bring another entrance to this specific area. So out of curiosity, because you mentioned a lot about safety, we've been wanting safety for decades. How long has this project been in the works?
So WMATA initially did a study on what it would take to do this entrance back in 2015, or that's when the study was released. And so I think there's been sort of kind of continued advocacy for this at least since the earlier part of the last decade. The funding for the project, it was put into funding, I believe, in FY20. I think it was $23 million was put into FY20. And then I think because of the pandemic and other changes, the money was reallocated for other purposes. And so it's been probably 8 or 9 years since there's been advocacy for this project, again, beginning with WMATA's initial study. We have that on our website, I believe, that kind of shares why it was important to do this. At the time when they did the study around 2014, the Noma Gallaudet station was the #1 station for growth each year. And so there was just a lot of understanding that there was, with a lot of growth, and especially then the stations were very congested. And so that's when that kind of really began about 8 or 9 years ago.
And Mr. Smith, is there a reason why the request for funding has almost doubled in those 9 years?
Yeah, so so the original amount that was put in, the $23 million, was always intended to really be kind of a starting point. Now, I will say that we've, in getting a newer update, we're trying to ensure that we get sort of one bite of the apple. And so the $50 million does its best to take into account the incredible increase in kind of because of the supply issues globally, taking into account that, having a really healthy contingency budget, to ensure that, again, that $50 million is as close to what it'll actually cost as possible. And so we think $50 million is the right number. Yeah, like I said, the $23 million that was put in years ago, I think was kind of a step one, but we think $50 million is what it'll take to get it done.
Okay.
And then does this project have a DOT project page? You know, the DOT tracks these kinds of projects and they post project profiles on the innovative finance support page.
Mm-hmm.
Does this particular project have a name and a page on that site?
It does not, because it's not that far in the process yet. It's not funded, so it doesn't have a page yet.
Okay. All right.
I have to share this with the group.
I mean, and I know that the previous Noma Gallaudet project at that site was about $104 million, and then that project closed out And a lot of that was bond funded. Is what is that the expectation here as well?
So for this project, we're asking specifically for capital dollars. We're asking for capital dollars for this project. That way that the project can be kind of funded over the next, up to, I believe it's 5 years. So we're asking for capital dollars for this.
Okay. All right. Let's move. I think they're all going to be money questions. Let's move to questions from the public. Let's see. Yeah, I'm right. Patrice Lancaster, who is paying for this? And I think you've answered this in part, but I am wondering, is there a mix between WMATA funds and, district funds? Where's the money coming from in a very specific way?
So, there specifically, it would be coming from the district. The private developer, obviously put in leaving that cutout for the project, has put in, several $1 million in revenue that it did not get by keeping that space for the district to put that in. But the money that we're asking for is specifically capital dollars that coming from the district. Now, how the district decides to utilize any kind of infrastructure money coming is certainly a possibility. But in terms of this ask, it's from the district.
Yeah. Okay. John Healy, the Metro Entrance project looks great, but the opportunity cost of $50 million on this project means we can't use those funds for other transportation and safety projects. What is the estimated total cost for the project, and how/what portion of the total cost will be city funded compared to the portion that will be privately funded? And I think you answered that. Basically, the private funding was the missed opportunity costs on the land.
Correct.
Now, are they counting the same missed opportunity costs on the land that they also counted in the original Nomagaya project?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So the original Nomagaya project included a $10 million, opportunity cost on the land around that location. Is this the same land that we're talking about, or a portion of the same land?
I'd have to ask about that. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you could find out, it kind of seems like a bit of a double dip on the, on that side of things. If we're counting that for two separate projects as a missed opportunity cost contribution. Skip Keats. Would the tunnel allow people who are not using Metro to pass through without entering the Metro gates, akin to the tunnels at Courthouse or Cleveland Park's underpass? Would elevators be placed along the path of the tunnel so that it would have multiple entry points like the London Tube does?
So I can answer definitely answer the first part of that question. The goal is to ensure that the fare gates are designed in a way that someone who's just trying to get to the other side of N Street can use this tunnel as a quicker way to get to N Street and points west of Noma. So you wouldn't have, the entrance wouldn't just lead you to the Metro station. It's essentially a pedestrian path to the other side of N Street. So it's almost like a pedestrian continuation of N Street. There aren't elevators intended to be in the project. However, it is being designed with ramps for accessibility down to the station, and that's already being designed on the developer side. They're kind of ramping down to where it's expected the tunnel will go to N Street. But right now there aren't any calls for elevators, but there is accessibility.
Okay. All right. Josie Thurston Watson, has the impact to traffic during construction been considered? Florida Avenue is already severely congested, and more construction will make that worse and potentially cause more accidents and safety issues. Also, there are already 2 existing accessible entrances, if I'm not mistaken. Are there existing stations that have 3 entrances?
Yeah, it's a really good question. One thing that we're seeing is that this project, there have been a number of other stations that are looking at opportunities for putting in an additional station to account for additional growth. So one that's happening right now is in Crystal City. Crystal City is putting in an additional station to its metro, in large part because of the growth coming from Amazon and just the growth that's happening in Crystal City. So they're doing a very similar project right now. There's also looking at ways of creating a new entrance to, or really kind of improving the entrance to the Union Station entrance that's there on First Street, and making that a lot more of a pedestrian-friendly entrance. And so this project is kind of following a similar model, and we've seen lots of the stations that are downtown have had entrances added, after the station was put into place to accommodate additional growth. So this project is very similar to a lot of others that are happening. And I think there might have been 2 questions in there. I might have missed one of them, or did I?
Yeah, whether any other stations had that many entrances. And there are.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. Next question, Andrew Grinberg. When you say the money was taken out, and this is the FY 2022 budget we're talking about, are you saying that the mayor put it in her proposal and the council took it out, or do you mean something else?
I would want to get super clear about that, but I think it might have been the money was swept. It was put in, I believe, by maybe I can't remember if it was the council or not, but it didn't make it into it was put in FY20, and then it got reallocated for pandemic reasons. And then in FY22, it made it into the budget. But by the time the final budget was put into place, that money was swept out. So I want to get super clear to make sure I'm answering the question, but it was in the budget and then taken out.
Okay, I don't know that answers the question.
Maybe
so
not.
let's try to come back with something, because I think the specific question is in regards to where the support is coming from. So is the mayor putting it in the budget and the council members are rejecting it, or how is it getting in and out of the budget? I think is what people are trying to figure out here.
Yeah. Let me just kind of clarify that and confirm that, just to make sure I'm giving the right answer.
Yeah, if you could, and you don't have to do that tonight, but if you'll look into that and get back with us, we'll share that.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I think Andrew Grinberg wants to confirm the total current cost of the project.
So the number that the $50 million again is the best estimate that we have right now. We've reached out to some construction companies that were originally gave us an estimate, again, not making sure that this is just an estimate at this point. But they've gone through, looked at the current conditions, looking at the cost of construction, given again the kind of global supply chain issues, ensuring that it had a healthy contingency budget. And so we feel as comfortable as we possibly could be with that $50 million. But it has to go through the whole process of engineering and all of this.
So basically that 50 million number is a leftover from 2015, and you guys are working to confirm that with current prices.
The $50 million is a number that we've come to recently. So that's a recent number. That's
okay.
As of November.
Okay, as of November. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And then last question here, I believe, comes from Desiree Williams. Just double check and see I don't have any other questions on the line. And Desiree Williams says, how does this align to the reduction in train service at Metro due to COVID impacts and more businesses remaining remote?
So I can maybe answer a little bit of that second question. I'll say that we at the bid, we did a return to office survey earlier in August, right around the Delta. And many offices were planning to return to the office in early 22. Now that was pre-Omicron. And so we're reaching out now to get a better understanding of when we think we'll get more office users returning to the area. So there has been a reduced pedestrian activity to the metro station, as can be expected. But we use a tool that sort of shows that activity is picking up in the neighborhood. It took a dip again around Omicron, but activity in the neighborhood is picking back up. And so we anticipate, as again, all these new projects are coming online in the next year to 5 years, that especially because a lot of that activity is also residential, we believe that the centers are going to be really important, really necessary, because we're going to have those people who are coming back and will have tremendous impacts on the metro station. And so, and a lot of that growth is coming east of the metro state, east of the tracks. And so that's why we continue to think this is really important, probably now more than ever.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then I'll just say that I think, ridership had nowhere to go but up, given everything that's going on. So I appreciate, what you've had to share. I think, we're a little bit farther east than some of the commissions you've spoken to so far, mentioned in your opening remarks. And one of the things that jumps out at me is that there's also a lot of redevelopment and population growth going on our eastern border, which lacks a lot of metro access in a much more severe way than what we're seeing at NOMA. And I think as part of the redevelopment at RFK, if we were going to spend $50 million towards something, my little 2 cents as it stands would be to see an infill above ground station in that parking lot to the north of RFK. But that's just one woman's opinion. If we got $50 million so people don't have to walk 2 blocks, I think we got $50 million to have another connection at a major redevelopment site like that.
Yeah, it's a good comment. Let's do both.
Yeah, hey, if you got it like that over there, but but if you don't.
And I will say, I'll add one last point. We had a study done for this, and even though it may not look like it, the new entrance puts Ivy City within the 1 mile walk shed to the station. Now, obviously, Ivy City and the other areas probably could use even a greater access, but it does put it within the 1 mile walk shed. So I just want to make sure that point is made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it also helps about Gallaudet, because and their current considerations with opening up some of their campus pathways as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your presentation. It was informative, and we'll look forward to answers to those follow-up questions, and we'll disseminate those as we can. Obviously, we can't vote this evening, but if you're interested in coming back to share responses and get a final decision from us, we can do that next one.
I'd love to. Thank you for your time and thank you for your questions.
Great. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay. All right. And then next up on our agenda, we do have voting actions still on the agenda. We cannot vote tonight because we do not have a quorum. So none of the decisions that we make would be legally binding. And, let's not go down that path. And we do have 2 items on the voting actions agenda. The first being 1961 H Street Northeast. I don't see the developer for that project here. This has been a long-standing project with some, well, actually, there's been some deadlines that our commission was not made aware of. And there will be some future deadlines. So we do want to vote on this in the near future. So we'll see if we can hear from that developer next month. Also, in regards to sports betting license, we do have Union Oyster Bar. You know, you guys are welcome to share an update if you'd like to. But as I stated, we can't vote this evening. So, you know, that decision is completely up to you. Union Oyster Bar, you have the floor.
Mr. Webster.
Silence might be our answer with that.
No,
Okay.
we don't have anything to say at the time since you
Okay.
can't vote.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the time.
Thank you though for coming.
Sure. All right. Thank you for coming, and sorry about that. We had some folks with emergencies, and so we weren't aware we were going to be short of commissioners until today. All right. So we'll move forward to community feedback and questions, commissioner reports, and then we'll go ahead and adjourn early. John Healy, we'll come back to your previous question because now it's the community feedback time. If you are a member of the community and you want to go and give feedback regarding anything that you've heard tonight, anything happening in the community, now is your time. This is kind of the free form section where you don't have to stay on topic. Just a reminder that those on the phone, you can use *9. John Healy, not a question about crime, but about traffic safety. Can someone provide an update on the traffic and safety study that was planned for Bladensburg Road Northeast and supposed to be posted to DDOT's website this month? And then I'll go ahead and actually refer that question to Commissioner Cobb as our transportation committee head. So if you have an update, if you'll provide it.
Yeah, no updates yet. Last I heard, which I mentioned at our previous meeting, DDOT is planning to announce the project and make the website go live sometime this month. They did not say when this month, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we hear about it by the 28th. But for now, it's just in a holding pattern.
All right, thank you for that. And then I do see this question from you, Kevin Horgan, in regards to the previous presentation. I might ask you to go ahead and say that for next month, or we'll coordinate getting you a response, you know, with the previous presenter. Anina Adelphio, regarding, which I guess this is Nate, again, I apologize, regarding 1961 H Street, what is the actual proposal? So this has been an ongoing, just a little bit of a boondoggle, to be frank. Over the years, this is a recurring case. So over the years, you know, some developer purchases what is basically half of a lot, like a triangle shaped portion of a lot at the end of that block. They try to put together a BZA case to develop that lot. And then the ANC and the BZA reject it. They sell it to a new person. That developer files a very similar or the exact same case. And then this happens, you know, every few years as that property is resold. And basically it's because the lot is not wide enough to meet basic building standards in terms of the width of a building. You can't build such a narrow building basically that, you know, people can't escape in case of fire, et cetera. And the lot is actually quite narrow because you have to consider it's triangle shaped. And of course, they're not going to let you build, but so far forward, A, because zoning doesn't allow that, and B, because, you know, people's water and gas lines, you know, run along that same line up and down the block. So this is basically a recurring case that we get. You know, we've given the developer that feedback. I think obviously they were not pleased to find out that this is kind of a recurring thing and it just gets sold to the next person. I think in this case, they've come up with an idea of trying to purchase additional property from their neighbor, but that neighbor is DC Housing Authority, and the property they own is of a different zone and in an historic district. So the likelihood of that really being an effective solution is also very slim. But, we've given that feedback, and, despite our best efforts to kind of explain that the feasibility of that situation, in addition to the fact that DCHA, has some staff currently under investigation for, conducting shady property deals. That we've given that feedback. People hold on to hope, and then we'll give our official feedback and opinion once we're able to next month. But that's basically the kind of the state of play on that one. Josie Thurston Watson. With all of this new construction, the developers and their subs are blatantly not following what they're permitted to do. An example is illegally blocking the alleys without notice and working on Sundays. How is DCRA, DDOT, the council going to address this with the community? The fines don't work, and the people working on the property are blatantly disrespectful. I suggest a hotline and a temporary work stop until complaints are addressed. Whatever is decided, something must be done. And I'll say that I agree with you 100%. I think we don't have enough inspectors, and the attempts that we have made to get additional inspectors have not been fulfilled. For instance, I became a DCRA inspector as a resident inspector in order to help with some of the problems that we're seeing in the neighborhood. They revoked my status as an inspector because I'm an ANC commissioner. And I know that that happened to ANC commissioners across the city. And so that really just depleted the kind of neighborhood inspectors. So you can apply on DCRA's website to be a resident inspector. And not only do you get to stick it to the folks who are sticking it to you, but you get paid for conducting these inspections. And, you verify, of course, everything that's going on, and you record, whenever you're seeing illegal construction and after hours construction. But that is still available for residents who are not ANC commissioners. And I think another thing that I'd really like to see people do is testify at the upcoming oversight hearings for the council in regards to these issues, because I think it's really important for them to have specific examples. And we'll be including the schedule for those hearings in our upcoming ANC newsletter that you should get in the next 7 to 10 days. Do any of the other commissioners have anything to add? Okay. All right. And I'm going to check the phone lines here to see if we have any other comments and questions from the public. Alicia Ashley, you have been recognized and you're able to unmute yourself so you can ask a question.
Hi, I did not have a question. I wanted to make a community announcement, if that's all right, or I can wait a little bit.
Go for it. This
All
is
right.
your community time.
So my name is Alicia, and I am from Community Mediation DC. And I am here to try and, of course, I lose my cute little spiel. I am here to just let you guys know of community mediation as a resource in Washington, DC. For the past 5 years, we've been building a free community mediation center in DC. Mediation is a voluntary and confidential resolution process that allows participants to feel heard, understand each other, and improve their relationships. We offer this virtually over Zoom as well as in person, although in general, mediation is always a face-to-face meeting with two non-judgmental mediators. Hi, Ms. Patrice. Mediation can be used for roommate tensions, conflicts between neighbors, disputes between family members, and collaborative planning, co-parenting plans, so many. We also host trainings like inclusive listening trainings. Monthly, we hold ambassador trainings where we are trying to train community leaders in mediation skills and in the tools and how to encourage mediation as a resource in their community. If there was any interest in hosting and training with the ANC, occasionally it can be the commissioners, it can be community members in the ANC that are interested, or if you just know of someone who has been having issues with a neighbor that you would like to recommend, I will post my information in the chat, and I am also here for any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that community announcement. Okay, all right. And I do see we have 2 more questions, and then those will have to be our last 2. Desiree Williams, any update on installation of residential only parking signs on 18th Street Northeast? Depending on which block you're on, you should already have residential parking, residential permit parking. But I think I recall you being on the 1000 block. But if that's not correct, shoot me a note. And then I'll look into what's going on specifically there, because I know that those were already approved for 18th Street. Rodney M. Burton, with the pop-up houses presented, how will homeowners take advantage of solar energy panels? And so that's a great question. Depending on the location for the neighboring property, it may or may not impact their solar panels. And it may only impact the solar panels for a portion of the day, should they choose to get solar panels at the adjacent property. In addition, for zoning cases, solar panels can only be considered if they predate the submission of project documents for the adjacent pop-up. And so, a lot of neighbors who already have solar panels, bring up that issue when they do see that there's a potential development next door to them. So that is something that people are considering when they're getting solar panels, as in addition to the cost benefits. And they do have lots of programs in DC for people of all income levels to take advantage of that. And you can just call 311 to get it. Great questions from everyone tonight. Let's go ahead and very briefly go through commissioner reports. Commissioner Salceda Guzman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just some quick things. As the environmental chair for the commission, I just wanted to update on some certain things going on in the community. The latest CAG meeting, Community Advisory Group on the PEPCO plant in 5D. We're coming to which was a long road to get here, but we're coming near the completion of the study, determining what technology will be used to clean the river and what which this project hopes to at least be completed. This study at least be completed by 2023. My understanding, this has been going on for like 8-9 years. So long ways it's taken us to get here, but we're here. And in terms of the Northeast Boundary Tunnel Project, which many of you might be familiar with on Mount Olivet Road, if you've driven on that road, y'all see how the traffic patterns are because of the project. Last month commenced phase 4 of this project, and it's going to take about 8 months to complete. So hopefully this year we'll see the end of this project, and we'll see the roads brought back to what they were, and even better, hopefully. But just a friendly reminder, what this project is that it's pretty much a way of helping to reduce the chance of flooding by about 50 to 70%. Some of y'all in the area might be aware that we had huge flooding a couple years ago one summer, and a lot of basements were damaged. A lot of properties were really affected by the flooding, including the church right there. So luckily this project is coming to a completion this year, and we're going to see progress there. Another note for any residents that are interested in getting more involved this year, I'm reopening the environmental committee to more residents that are interested, looking for more diverse individuals that are interested in pretty much the 3 areas that we're going to be covering, which is sanitation, aka cleaner streets, better alleys, and green spaces in the community, as well as safety. Safety is an environmental issue, which includes obviously violence, the crime, and how we can bridge better gaps with MPD in terms of these issues, and obviously also health and wellness. We still live throughout a pandemic at this time, and we all know, I'm pretty sure a majority of the people still on this call right now at 9:17 p.m. know what a burnout is. So these are certain things that I would like to address through the committee and any volunteers interested in helping on these particular topics. So please reach out to us if you're interested. You can find the application for the environmental committee still on our website, so please check that out. It's still available. And then following up on what Mr. Hunter from the mayor's office was talking about in terms of what's coming to Northern Trinidad on March 12th, Saturday, March 12th, between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. The Mayor's Office of Clean Streets and the Mayor's Office of Women's Policy and Initiatives will be collaborating for Women's History Month, and they're going to be bringing in a big dumpster for anyone that wants to dump some of their bulk items. And we'll also be doing a community cleanup. So that'll be one thing that we'll be doing next month, just to get our hands a little bit dirty and clean up some of the trash off the streets. At the same time, we'll have a follow-up on April 9th and joining the citywide efforts for cleaner streets. So it's going to be a continuing project that we'll be doing right now, focusing on Trinidad. We'll be focusing on other parts of 5D, just because we know 5D is actually hit pretty badly when it comes to these issues and across the ward overall. So I've been collaborating with the Mayor's Office, Office of Clean Streets, DOEE, a lot of DPW, a lot of different agencies to see if we can get some solutions to these issues. I'm not a big fan of pageantry, and I know sometimes these events come off as such. I'm not looking for a one-time thing. I'm looking for a continuing solution to this problem. So if you're interested on seeing cleaner sidewalks, cleaner streets, better looking alleys, please reach out. If it were up to me, I wish we could just charge the rats rent. And I feel like with that money, we can do a lot, but sadly, you can't do that. So please, we need a community effort on this issue, the legal dumping, the sanitation issues, and we would love to see more volunteers. So please reach out.
All right, thank you for that. And then Commissioner Salcedo Guzman, can you say the date one more time for the cleanup?
For next month's cleanup, that's going to be Saturday, March 12th, 10 to 1 p.m. We're drafting a flyer, so we'll be sharing that electronically. And we're trying to get the director of Clean Streets at our next public meeting next month. So please save any questions y'all have for him, because I'm sure you'll have them. So he's looking forward to that conversation at next month's meeting.
Great, thank you for that. All right, and Commissioner Cobb.
Thanks. Just one update, our Transportation Committee meets this Thursday at 8 p.m. To access the meeting. It's the same link as we use for our general meeting. So however you got to this meeting tonight, you can access our Transportation Committee meeting on Thursday the same way. We're going to be talking about some upcoming legislation, as well as just a little bit of discussion about the 3rd Street Metro Tunnel.
All right, thank you for that, much appreciated. And then the very brief update for me, it is community cleanup season. We'll be having Earth Day cleanup on Saturday, April 23rd. You'll get additional details regarding the date and time and COVID precautions as the date gets closer. And that will be in our ANC 5D monthly newsletter. So if you're not already signed up for our newsletter, please do sign up at anc5d.org. All right, and with that, I will move to adjourn tonight's meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all the seconds are all in favor. Tonight's meeting is officially adjourned. And thank you all so much. I hope you can join us next month on March 8th at 7 p.m.